Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Film Fan Club Show. I am Sam Carrico. We got a lot of superhero movie news to get to this week. It's official. Warner Brothers Discovery has found the new co-CEO for their DC Films division in James Gunn. Yeah, I know he previously directed The Suicide Squad, but this is taking that title a little too seriously. Harrison Ford is joining the MCU. The legendary actor will reportedly play Thunderbolt Ross in the next Captain America movie. When asked about joining the MCU, Ford replied, "What the hell is an MCU?" I'm kidding, but seriously though, I can't wait to see him half-ass his way through that press tour. We got some hopeful news for Game of Thrones fans. Author George R.R. Martin said in a recent interview that he is now 3/4 of the way done with the book Winds of Winter. Yeah, in related news, hell is about to freeze over. I'm gonna propose to this girl I've been seeing, and my dad's finally gonna take us on that vacation he's been promising. The Fantastic Beasts franchise may be on hold as Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said that they are looking at doing more Harry Potter movies, but only if J.K. Rowling is involved. Geez, J.K. Rowling and David Zaslav? Now there's a nightmare blunt rotation. Zaslav also told The Hollywood Reporter, quote, "We haven't had a Superman movie in 13 years, and we haven't had a Harry Potter movie in 15 years. Which is wrong on both accounts. Man of Steel came out 9 years ago, and Deathly Hallows 2 was 11 years ago. I don't even have a joke for that. Man just doesn't understand his own company. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Later on, Hilton Price is going to be coming on the show to help us break down the DC movie Black Adam. But first, Wakanda Forever hit theaters over the weekend. Let's get right to it. I want to remind everybody about the time codes section. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to use the time codes to jump to whatever section of the video you want to check out first. But also on the podcast, you could scrub to whatever time code you want to check out first because it's in the show notes. Finally, on Twitch, if you want to catch these discussions live, make sure you follow us on twitch.tv/thefilmfanclub. I love all the ad reads up front because I want to bring in my guest. Jenna Lazenby is the host of the Opinionated podcast. We're going to talk about Black Panther today. Jenna, welcome to the Film Fan Club Show.
Hi, Sam.
Up top, I like to ask this first. You saw Wakanda Forever. What did you think walking out of the theater?
I have like a range for my rating, so it's like an 8.5 to a 10 out of 10. Like walking out of the theater, I was like 10 out of 10. Would see it again, would recommend it. Think it's a chef's kiss perfect movie. Kind of having some time to settle on it. It kind of falls somewhere between like an 8.5 and a 9 now. And that's mostly because of like the B plot that kind of I feel like could have been taken out and we could have saved some time. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you thought could have been cut out of the film because I loved this film. I thought it was a triumph, is probably an overstated term, but it was really well done because obviously with Chadwick Boseman's untimely death, I didn't know where they were going to take this story. But then upon seeing the trailers, I really got the idea that they were going to handle like a nation mourning the loss of their king. What kind of happens in the aftermath of that, the destabilization. Also, what would happen when a country they discover vibranium, a finite resource, and what's going to happen whenever other countries want to plunder those resources. So I was really interested to see how they handled all that, and I loved the way they handled it for the most part. I do think that the film kind of stumbles as it goes along, but as a whole, I was super impressed by this film to the point where I liked it more than the first. The first I thought was a good film. It just fall a little bit into more of a Marvel formula kind of as it goes on. But I want to kind of circle back to our thoughts on the second movie in a second. But yeah, where does this movie stack up against the first one for you? And then also, what did you kind of think of the first one?
It's a good film, but I think honestly I like Wakanda Forever better because I feel like Angela Bassett, she's in the first movie and that's kind of it. Like she's there for this to say that Angela Bassett is there, whereas in this film she you actually get to see her act. As somebody who grew up watching movies that she's in, I know she has the chops. She's a phenomenal actress and she was totally underutilized in the first movie.
I think that's a great way to put it. She was in the first movie, but as was Shuri. I think I have those two notes
Mhm.
written down. Shuri and Angela Bassett's character, the Queen, they were both in the first movie, but in the second movie, they really get a chance to step up and deliver like amazing performances. It almost makes you forget how problematic Letitia Wright can be in real life. But and then
Correct.
I mean, this movie does suffer from the loss of Chadwick Boseman. I mean, of course, the world
Mhm.
suffered, but like as a film, he gave a really great performance in that first film.
Mhm.
But the way the supporting cast is really kind of able to step up to the plate, I think really made this movie. I was very skeptical of just reapproaching this character after Chadwick Boseman's death. Part of me was like, okay, we should probably just end the story there. Part of me, I even considered doing a hot, on the film fan club show, I like to do the hot take monologues at the end, and I thought maybe we should just recast the character because I've been so skeptical of films Rise of Skywalker, just half-assing like, oh, the actor died, so let's try and put something together without them, and I've seen it fall flat. So I just wanted I was like, we could either treat this like Dumbledore and have, if the actor dies, we could recast him
Mhm.
respectfully and then move on and continue in his legacy, or maybe we should just not continue on. I think it was so important to have this movie be the exact way it is because it does create such I think a beautiful arc for a lot of these characters, for Queen Ramonda and for
Amanda.
I'm not, and then Shuri, especially Shuri's arc, and then the way they're able to tie it back with certain aspects of the first movie, and then even I was like, okay, who is going to be the Black Panther? You kind of said that Shuri is the clear choice. I was like, skeptical of her taking on the mantle, but I think again, just tying it in with her arc in the film, I really liked. I thought it was a great film or a great arc, and I think that the actress Letitia Wright did a fantastic job. But this movie also introduces Namor, a new
Mhm.
character to the Marvel, or not a new character to the Marvel universe, but to the cinematic side of the Marvel
Mhm.
universe. Obviously he's like one of the first Marvel superheroes in the comics, so it was a big deal that he's going to be in this movie. Before we get into the spoiler section, what did you just kind of think of him as the villain of this film?
Yeah. Hot. That's what I thought. I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't need my supervillains to be hot, but it's always a perk when
It
they
helps.
are. So yeah, I really liked his character. I know for like a long time the running joke of Marvel was like, we have a big bad and then he's gone. Like we kill him at the end of the movie. Um, and so for a lot of it, I was like crossing my fingers and hoping that they weren't gonna kill him. Like I was like, partially because like he's hot, but also because like I was very compelled by his character. It's a similar way, but also very different for how I was like compelled with Killmonger. Like with Killmonger, like we're both Black people living in
Right.
America, so like I under like while he's like a villain, I see him more as like an anti-hero kind of because like I understand like the driving force of what's making him angry, right? Like if you've had the resources to take care of like people who look like you're like for centuries and you don't, like it's kind of messed up. Like
Right.
so I kind of like I understand like his like frustrations. And then like I'm not indigenous and like I'm brown in the sense of like I'm a person who has had like their culture kind of like pillaged by people and like been like my ancestors were colonized and forcibly brought over here, so I kind of like I really understand like his frustrations too of like you are like born into this new world where like everything is like seeming like not seemingly everything is equal and all this jazz, and then you come up to the surface and you just see how horribly they're treating people who look like you, like, and why that would make you not want like to interact, right? And why it would make you defensive and want to like kind of gatekeep what you have. So I understand like his frustrations as well in that regard. So like it's really nice to have like a nuanced villain because like sometimes like the Joker is not, in my opinion, a nuanced villain. He is just like in like
Just a force
crazy.
of nature. Yeah.
Whereas Namor and Killmonger, like they have, I feel like
Yeah.
justifiable reasons as to why they are like so angry at the world around them.
Yeah, I'd like to name more. I think I can. If I'm picking up what you're laying down, I kind of I think agree that yeah they have similar struggles, but like while Black Panther in the first Black Panther movie, Killmonger was like a dark reflection of Black Panther. Namor is someone else entirely, but a similar struggle that you can latch on to, and it just with also of course different ways of handling it.
It's gonna get into spoilers. So
Yeah, okay. Let me throw up the spoiler banner as we go into spoilers right now. Could you tell us a little bit about the theme of imperialism? What is this movie trying to say?
I mean, I think it's telling us what we already know about imperialism. Don't fucking do it. Don't be imperialist assholes. It very much felt like, especially when the Queen was talking to like the UN Council or whatever, and they were like, you have all these weapons, like you could at any point do this, that, and the other. And so like, how do we know we can trust you? And at the same time, it's also like, but we've had this like resource for like thousands of years and
Yeah.
we have not done anything to you with it. Like why like we literally knew we had it and we knew y'all would say some stupid shit like this. So we like quite literally closed our borders and let y'all think we were a third world nation so
Yeah.
that we never had to do anything with this. And yet the moment you guys find out that we have it, you're like, y'all are gonna try to murder us.
Yeah.
And I'm
Or
like,
they just break their way in and try and steal it, literally.
yeah. And I think like that's like it's that fear of like if the roles were reversed, would you guys do to us what we did to you? And I think that's kind of like the underlying like thing, like the underlying thread that like kind of runs through the movie as like the UN's trying to get like Wakanda to give up vibranium, as like the mercenaries are trying to take the vibranium, as the scientists are trying to find vibranium that's like not being used by Wakanda, as like Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character is like trying to get Ruby Williams back so that they can then like get her to build a new machine. Like it's just like there's so much of like it just feels like we have to get to them before they get to us, even though I don't feel like they even want to get at you.
I think they theme of imperialism is handled in this movie. It's just so hard not to compare this with Black Adam because they both try and handle this. I think this
Yeah.
movie handles it a lot better, and I love what you're saying about it's like if we were in their shoes, what would we do? And the way that Cherie ultimately decides to handle it differently than the way that Namor wanted to handle it originally, and interrogating those differences and choosing what the right path forward
Mm-hmm.
is. I think it dovetails with the theme of imperialism a lot better. I
Mm-hmm.
just wish that it would have followed through on a little bit of what the trailers pointed at or hinted at, and then what this film, especially with that UN sequence with the Queen, hinted at as well, is just the film tries to a little bit, like by including the CIA, including Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character. So it's like, but it pulls back. I feel like the whole
Mm-hmm.
America subplot or the Western nations trying to steal the vibranium, that subplot kind of gets dropped. So which is
Mm-hmm.
that's a little disappointing, but it gets dropped in favor of interrogating this other idea,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's fine. I think I was also I also didn't know how I felt about the real bad guys being like upon first watch. I think now that we're talking about it, I like it more. But at first watch, with the film starting out with the Western countries being the bad guys, and then being towards the end is like actually the real bad guy is another person of color. I was like, that's a weird choice to just drop one and then switch them out with the other. But now I think I like it more because it's interrogating those differences.
So I think that's like my one kind of complaint with the movie, is I think that's the B plot that could be taken out altogether or should have been fleshed out more. I love Martin Freeman. I'm glad that he's back in it. Like, I love seeing him.
But yeah, but why was
But
he in
like
this
that,
movie outside of
but
being
like
in the first
that,
one?
yeah. Like I mean, like I understood his reason for being in the film. Like I understood like why they saw him in the beginning. But like at that point, he then could have been like a cameo slash callback to whatever. But I think like Julia's character is just unnecessary
Yeah.
there. Like I understand, I feel like she also could have been a cameo, like right after or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a great point. They could have done two scenes. They could have done one as a callback to Everett Ross, and then one
mhm,
later with Everett Ross, but then with the reveal that his boss is Julia Louis Dreyfus to set up the
mhm.
Thunderbolts or whatever they're trying to do.
Yes, and then like it could have dropped from there because like I
Yeah.
don't think because I feel like after that, like after they do all that wreckage and the cars disappear and you get that Julia reveal. I feel like everything after that, like that whole subplot, could have been taken out of the movie if maybe after like the mercenaries came in, Wakanda like actual Wakandans are like, well, we need to guard all of the vibranium because they're gonna keep coming for it, and then they find it, and then that's like the very first battle we get between Namor and the Wakandans is like they find it. They're like, oh, we didn't know that vibranium was here. Also, let's take it back because maybe this is like maybe they tie it in to be like, oh, this is part of the vibranium that Claw took from the like all those years ago, and it got
Mm.
dumped in the ocean, and they try to take it, and that's how they find out all this other stuff, and then all other stuff ensues. Like I like without having to have that subplot of Ross
I
and
don't know. I'm torn
all
because I
that.
love having that attack on the ship. I think it was really cool, and it doesn't work quite as well if you have capable people on it. So you can't have Wakandans on there because they're too capable. You need some dumb soldiers or something you can pick off. So I loved having them getting picked, and I just thought it was really fun a horror scene. But it does
Mm-hmm,
bring me to an issue that I had with the film is their singing
mm-hmm.
ability. They forget that they have the ability to kill people with their singing because by the
Yeah.
end of the film that would have been very useful if they just made all the Wakandans just walk off the boat by singing to them.
Mm-hmm.
They forget that they could do that, so that was a little annoying.
But I think the reason that they don't do it is because they have to be in the water.
Yeah, they could have done it. They
Because,
could have sang from the water.
right, true. But like the way the fight scene is set up, all of the um God I hate this. The
The
fish people
Atlanteans, yeah,
are the Atlanteans are on the boat. Like they are
right.
like
But they
physically on the
before,
boat.
yeah,
But yeah,
before.
yeah, if they had like done it before they got on the boat,
That's
yeah.
how I would start every single assault that I'm doing. Like as an army, I'd be like, all right, let's just
Yeah.
try the singing one because that's worked
Mm-hmm.
so far.
Mm-hmm.
Riri Williams is I have it
Yes.
written down as Ironheart because I'm terrible at names because that, but that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the same character, right? So
Yes.
as we start, I thought she was a fine character. For as an introduction to the character, fine in somebody else's movie, worked fine. Could have used a little bit more fleshing out, but I loved the scene where the Cherie, Okoye, and Ironheart all outrun the police. I thought it was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I love a good like kid discovering their powers and whimsical action scene, and that's kind of what that movie or that scene in the movie felt like. But what did you think? The introduction to Ironheart, but also I thought that scene was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. As a Black person, I can say that when Riri came on, Riri came on screen, I was like, wow, she seems really cool. And then she started speaking, and I was like, oh, I don't think I like her. But by the time they like left the garage and she was flying off on her suit and Shuri was taking the motorcycle and Okoye's in the car,
Yeah.
I like it solidified on her. I think what I kind of like didn't like is that I know she's like really smart, right? But like she kind of gets this kind of like drug dealer vibe off the jump. Like you meet her and she's like taking like what I'm assuming is like $1,600 from this dude because he didn't pay her because she did his MIT homework for him and didn't pay her on time. Like it's given very much like like I understand she probably would do this, and there are kids that do this, but like it very much felt like drug dealer vibes, and I didn't really like that. And
Oh,
then when Shuri kind of,
I took it as like a girls get it done. She's gonna show them.
yeah, I get that too, but like for me, that's kind of what it was. But then like when like Shuri kind of walks into her room and she's like, "Hold on, you're the princess of Wakanda," and she's like freaking out. Whereas like Shuri like walks on campus, walks like right past people, and nobody has any idea who she is. Like she didn't
Well,
help the planet come back. Like I feel like
okay,
she's been on
yeah.
a national stage. Like she and her brother has also passed away, and
Recently
she's
too.
no
Yeah, that's a good point.
recently, and she's also like known to be one of the smartest people on the planet. Like I feel like we should know, like people should have had more of a reaction to the fact that like And the fact that like Riri has this reaction that kind of like solidifies it. Like I kind of brought me back over.
I
But
don't
I
know.
overall I liked her character. The
Okay.
fact that she's from like what I assume is like the south side of Chicago is like super, super cool.
I should have dovetailed this better whenever I was talking about Shuri and Letitia Wright's performance, but I love the way the movie starts. I love that
Mm-hmm.
it starts, and this kind of ties in with the rest of the movie too. They made a huge effort to make this feel like, and this sounds really cliche, but to make it feel like a real movie. But Marvel movies have had such a hard time feeling like anything other. People have made the Spy Kids joke, you know, it looks like Spy
Mm-hmm.
Kids 3D game over. Whereas in this movie, they have sets, they have actual like actors in rooms
Mm-hmm.
together, like just in talking, and that's the scene. And by God, they show the tiniest amount of restraint whenever it comes to making jokes in every single fucking scene, which is something I've been dying for from a Marvel movie. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
DC knows how to not make jokes. But like now, can we get a Marvel movie that can be serious for one goddamn second? So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they were able to open this movie with her trying to save her brother and failing, and
Mm-hmm.
sitting with that failure for a second, of course, leading into the Marvel Studios logo with all Chadwick Boseman images, was just very powerful, I thought. Great
Mm-hmm.
prologue.
I think this is what superhero movies kind of should feel like, if that makes sense. Because there's a lot going on. Whereas like because Marvel always tries to ground things in the real world, but doesn't do a very good job at it because it's like, look at here, very flashy, very loud. Look at all this money we threw at it. Oh my God, look at this cameo. Look at this really famous person. Whereas this is like where you have like those like elements in this, but they actually tell a story and they all kind of flow into each other, and you don't feel like you don't feel like you're taking away from the movie for the sake of like being superhero-y, if that makes sense. I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
How did you feel about the cameo,
At the very end.
the Michael B. Jordan cameo?
Oh yes, thanks. That's something I wanted to mention too. I love the way that they were able to show Shuri. Something throughout the film is Shuri's rage and how much she feels hurt by the loss that she's gone through, and the way I love that they were able to tie that in with Michael B. Jordan. You know, obviously you want to see Michael B. Jordan again, but I like the way they were able to bring him back and use him to kind of propel Shuri's arc. So I like Michael B. Jordan. It was great to see him, but I just really love the way they were able to utilize him in bolstering Shuri, because then she comes. I mean, I think they even point out in her Black Panther suit that it's got a little bit of T'Challa's, you know, iconography, but it's also got a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
Michael B. Jordan's
Yeah,
Killmonger's.
it pays homage to T'Challa in the way it's designed, but it's gold like Killmonger's.
It looks badass. What did you think of it?
Mm-hmm. Um, I loved it. It's one of those things of I like Michael B. Jordan as an actor. I forgot how much I like him in like Black Panther.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that too. Whenever I watched that movie again earlier this week, I was like, "Damn, he is really good in this." Because I was
yes, so
wondering a lot how much of it is hype and how much of it is real. And I do think some of the movie was hype, some of the buzz.
mhm.
But Michael B. Jordan, you can't say that about him. He was fantastic.
Like I don't really like it when like you kind of bring certain characters in for a plot device, but like I'm glad that he helped Shuri grow, because
Mhm.
I think something that he like tried to say in the first movie was like we should do to them what they did to us, and why wouldn't we do what they did to us, right? And
Right.
that was like his whole thing, and he's like trying to get everybody to kind of like agree to that, and like the people who are like on their moral high ground, they're not going to do that. But like Shuri, who I have been where Shuri is, like my mom died 3 years ago, so like I've been at that like rock bottom place where I like the world is not the same without my mom in it, and I don't know how, like she has like compounded loss, like she's lost her dad, and then she lost her brother, and now she's lost her
Yeah.
mother. So like she has like a lot of loss going on, and so like I get like the world is not the same, I am hurting, I want everyone to feel as hurt as I feel. So I get that, and I think that that was like the perfect time like to bring Michael B. Jordan in, to be like I inherently want to watch the world burn for all the bad things that the world has done to my people, and I want to watch the world burn because of the fact that my mother is dead, and I want everybody to feel as bad as I do. And for her to be able to be like to also have that callback um to the first movie of her mom kind of coming in and being like, show them who you are, remember who you are. And it's like, correct. Like we all have bad days, and we all have like hard lives, but that doesn't mean we have to make everybody else's lives hard and like shitty just because. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think last week we were talking about House of the Dragon and Rings of Power and how a lot of people's problems just come down to perpetuating hardship that you go through and just like spreading that, paying it forward, kind of. And I love that they used that as a way to make sure that Shuri doesn't do that, and then her finally at the end of the film doing the funeral, the post funeral ceremony that her mom showed her, burning and then having, oh my gosh, and then just intercut with all the footage of Chadwick Boseman. It was very powerful. But that leads us into the very, very last thing that I wanted to talk with you about is that post-credit scene. We didn't talk about Lupita Nyong'o as well. There's not a lot to say about her other than she's really good. She's Lupita Nyong'o. I liked her a lot in the film. She had a little bit more to do in the first film, it seemed like, but they found a way to include her in this film.
Yes.
The way she saves Shuri from Atlantis was a little bit too quick. It was like, damn, that was easy for her. She just got right in and out like so fast. Especially it was such a big deal that Okoye lost her halfway through the movie for Shuri to be saved by Lupita Nyong'o so quickly. It was like, all right, you just decided you don't want to deal with that anymore. That plot.
To touch on that like super fast.
Sure.
I really liked that they gave Okoye more depth in this movie.
Yeah.
Because the last movie, it was like, she is Dora Milaje. That is her whole identity. And she's married, which kind of you don't really know until this movie that she's actually married to W'Kabi. So, yeah. But like, and that's like her whole thing is like Dora Milaje. And now she has to like find out her life without it.
Outside
and like still, and I think that that's really good.
So the last thing, post-credit scene, tears in the theater, Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa, very, very, very well done. But also it sets up something for the future of the Marvel universe. What did you think about that scene? And what do you think it means going forward?
So I don't know how they're going, like what they're going to do with Prince T'Challa's character. Because I know in the comics, like he is part of like the Young Avengers, but he's a little bit older. And I think right now he is like 6.
Oh,
so
sure.
I don't know if they're going to if we're going to have some weirdo time jump and he's going to suddenly be in the Young Avengers and he's like 14 or something. I don't know if that's going to happen, or if, this is the last. I mean, Black Panther is going to come back because we got told that at like the very, very last bit of the movie. This movie was like really difficult for me. Like I wanted to cry a lot. Like at the beginning, I wanted to cry. When Ramonda dies, I wanted to cry. When they rolled like the pre-law, like all the purple Black Panther T'Challa memorial, I wanted to cry, but like the tears kind of just didn't fall. And then like they brimmed, my eyes stung, I had to dab, but they didn't fall. And then like Prince T'Challa comes on screen, and like that got me. Like I shed like one tear. Like they actually fell that time, but it was just like I don't know, it hit me. Yeah. I like the scene. It's a very good, I think, send off to Chadwick Boseman.
No, I thought that was great. I'm glad they played it very seriously. And as far as a post-credits scene or a mid-credits scene in a film like this, I think it was very well done, because it doesn't really have to. The reason I ask what it means for the future is because I was in the theater I was in. Guy two seats down, he goes, yes. And he goes like, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm like, whoa, that guy must know something that I don't. That means something's coming. I don't know what that means. But I just thought it was a cute, like, oh, he had a son and his legacy lives on and everything's going to be all right. And I thought that was what it meant. I thought it was a nice bow to tie the film up with. So I don't even know if it needs to lead to anything. I think this film, again, I think this movie is a minor miracle, honestly, being made in the modern day Marvel pipeline. The fact that it was so self-contained, so played straight, and so like isn't used. I mean, there's a little bit of the Julia Louis-Dreyfus stuff, which the film suffers for, but it, for the most part, it's not trying to set up some sequel. It's just honoring a legacy and then telling a very serious story. So I so loved it. I thought it was a great film.
I'm so glad that we've watched a movie and we don't have differing opinions.
Jenna, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much. You have
Hmm.
the Opinionated podcast. Would you like to
Yes.
plug that, and where can people find you online?
I will plug that, even though I have not done anything with it in like a year and a half. The
A
pandemic happened,
hiatus.
guys.
It's a hiatus.
The pandemic happened, and I forgot to pick it up. But we're coming back. Actually, we're coming back. And now that I've said it, it's gonna happen. Yeah, that's the Opinionated Podcast or the Opinionated Pod on Instagram. It has a little notebook, like composition notebook, profile pictures, which how you know it's me. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's who is Jenna anyway. Um, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's jlaz_13. I have fun opinions on things. I also have bad opinions on things, but I think that's what everybody has. So that's where you can find me
Not me.
if
I
you
have
want.
only
If
good.
you
I
want,
have only good opinions.
he does not. I love him, but he does not.
Jenna, thank you
Well,
so
with
much
that,
for joining the show. It's been a pleasure.
thanks, Cam.
I'm thrilled to be joined by he is the host of the Opinions Like A-Holes podcast, co-host, I should say, and also co-host of the People Persons Paper podcast. I hope I got that right. Hilton Price joins me. Hey, Hilton.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to be here, and it's the first time on my show, but I've been on your show back in the day. For those I forgot to mention, could you just give us a little bit of a preview what people could expect on both your shows?
Sure. Opinions Like A-Holes is a pop culture podcast. Michael Zampino and I talk about music, movies, television, video games, and just anything we can. We bring on guests from across entertainment. Like, we had you on a couple years ago to talk about the Film Fan Club. And we have comedians, artists, singers, dancers, just about everything you can imagine. We put out episodes just about every week. And if you just search Opinions Like A-Holes on your favorite podcast app, you can find us. And if you want a more specific podcast, if you're a fan of the show The Office, that's what the People Persons Paper podcast is all about. My co-host Brian Sittler and I are going through every episode of the NBC sitcom. We're currently in season 5 with, I believe, maybe as many as 80 episodes in the can already. So going strong and not stopping until we get to season 9, and then probably not stopping then either. So lots to listen to if you want to hear more of me.
So today I figured we could talk about Black Adam. Real quickly, before we get into anything specific, obviously DC movie, superheroes, The Rock. Hilton, I want to ask, what was your initial thoughts walking out of the theater?
Honestly, I really liked it. It wasn't highbrow. It wasn't, deep philosophical content, although there was a little bit of they tried to get a little deep into a few issues, but it was a solid, good time, good action set pieces. You could tell The Rock was really committing to the character. Some of the early reviews described it as boring, or at least his performance is boring. I didn't really get that. I thought he was kind of enjoyable. He's The Rock. He's not the most emotive performer. We've come to know that, and he's definitely playing the character as stoic and a little bit of a man out of time who doesn't understand the current culture and the way we act nowadays. So I thought it was a pretty solid time. Good superhero flick. Loved the introduction to new characters. There's a few things I thought could have been done better, but overall I liked it. For fans of superhero movies and action movies, I think you're not going to be disappointed.
That's an interesting take. I honestly was expecting a little bit more of a lukewarm take, because I personally had a little bit more of a lukewarm take, because this movie, speaking of Shazam, of course, and you hinted on Dwayne Johnson a little bit, is this movie was originally supposed to be not a movie. It was supposed to be Black Adam was going to be the villain in the Shazam movie, but then they cast Dwayne Johnson in the role, and his star grew over time. That eventually they reached the point where they're like, we need to make Black Adam its own film. And I think in doing so, like you said, they tried to reach out and branch out and touch on some things with the movie, but it felt a little anemic in terms of storyline. So do you think this movie really needed to be its own film, or do you think it would have worked better potentially as a villain in somebody else's film?
Well, it's such a great example of just what a weird path the character of Black Adam has been on in this movie role, and just how DC has kind of had to keep shifting their path as they've tried to build a cinematic universe. Obviously, traditionally Black Adam is the foil for Shazam, but with The Rock attached to the role, you saw this kind of reshaping of Black Adam as an anti-hero. And I'm hearing, and I can't speak to the validity of this, you may know better than I do, but I'm hearing that The Rock, that Dwayne Johnson, has some kind of contractual requirement where he's not a villain. He's the hero, he wins, he doesn't lose. Like, these are kind of part of his thing. Like, he's not ever shown defeated in a fight, allegedly. I can't say that I know that that's 100% true, but I could kind of see where that might be the case, because they really took a lot of steps to ensure that Black Adam was presented as an anti-hero. You know, he kept saying he wasn't a hero, and that was the big conflict between him and the Justice Society. But then also with our point of view characters, the young mother and son, who are part of the kind of revolutionary group in Kahndaq, they were pushing him to be a hero and kept referring to him as the hero, the champion of Kahndaq. And I could really see where they were kind of stepping outside of maybe the traditional mold of Black Adam, because Black Adam in the comics, he is more of a Doctor Doom character, in that in Kahndaq, just like in Latveria for Doctor Doom, he is beloved. He is the monarch, the ruler, and his people love and respect him. But outside of Kahndaq, he is a villain. Like, it's not really negotiable. He has acted altruistically from time to time, but even now in the middle of DC's big crossover that's going on right now, Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, he's stepping up to help heroes because he has to, because the bulk of the heroes are off the table for reasons I won't get into. But he is still a villain, and he still beats some hero ass in that book. So to see them kind of set up these hoops to jump through to, I'd say, rehabilitate Black Adam, but on screen he's never existed before. So really, to introduce him in this whole new light, it's been interesting to see. I don't know that they pulled it off entirely, but I thought they did a lot better than I ever would have guessed. And with DC's track record, this still felt like it was better than average on the DC movies. You know, this to me felt more of like on the Wonder Woman and the Suicide Squad side of things, and less so on the Batman versus Superman side, where things have just not been great.
I guess as a Batman versus Superman, the Ultimate Edition, and a fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League as well, I guess I'm having a hard time figuring out if they took away complexity from Black Adam by having him be more hero than anti, or more hero than villain, you know, on the anti-hero scale, or if they added layers to who would normally be a more straightforward villain. I guess I'm having a hard time. I do think the Dwayne the Rock Johnson-ification of the character can be a little bit of a problem, because, I mean, how is this character supposed to be going forward if he's going to fight characters like Shazam and Superman and can never lose? So I don't know. Where do you land on that? Is this more complex or less complex than the comic book version, would you say?
I would say more complex. They added layers to him compared to the comic book version to kind of put him in more of a gray area and to kind of create that kind of hero of Kahndaq identity for him. But you're absolutely right. I don't know where it leaves us going forward, and especially on the heels of the news of Henry Cavill getting to do another Man of Steel movie, some kind of Superman sequel, really establishing, because the end, you know, the idea that Black Adam would go up against Superman, yeah, you're not going to have Superman lose. So the nice thing about the Black Adam film is they introduced heroes and really set it up. And I thought it was some kind of deft stepping to set it up so that the heroes could still be the heroes and never actually really beat Black Adam. They did a great job kind of creating the conflict and then finding a way to go around it. And you know, could have done better, of course. There's always a better way, and these are still just kind of, at its core, not a real thinker of a film. But it was better than I expected.
I guess I have to admit, I have seen Black Panther, Wakanda Forever at this point, and I mentioned in the pre-show that they handle a lot of themes similarly, and in my opinion, I think Black Panther handled it a lot better. So I do have the I guess the opposite of an added benefit. I have the negative benefit of having already seen what I think is a much better film. So whenever you're like, this movie isn't really a thinker, I'm like, yeah, but it could have been and still could have been good, which is what I like about Black Panther.
Well, and I guess, you know, part of it might be, and I can kind of see it in the way we're both approaching it. We seem to be approaching it from kind of slightly different angles. You know, first off, I haven't seen Black Panther yet, and I'm super excited to hear what you're saying. because I am very, very much invested in that film and very much hoping for it to be good and to be a ride that I enjoy. Um, I had no expectations walking into Black Adam. I really it competence was maybe success for me there, because I had we not decided to do this discussion today, I might have just waited till it hit streaming. I
Yeah.
was not that excited for it. It seemed okay. It seemed perfectly serviceable. I dig The Rock just fine. Anything he's been in, I've enjoyed. Even the dumb stuff. Rampage was fine. The Jungle Cruise or whatever, that was fine. But going in and hearing that it was going to be kind of boring and overly flashy, and I was like, the first couple of action scenes that really established his power, I kind of really enjoyed the unstoppableness of him. It reminded me a little bit of the Quicksilver scenes in the old X-Men movies, and so that stuff got me on board pretty quick. And then when his stoicism wasn't as boring as I expected, I got more of kind of an Arnie and Terminator 2 vibe, where he was just kind of stiff, and the young kid helped him learn a little humanity.
Absolutely.
I kind of dug that. The kid in the movie, the skateboard kid, got a lot of grief, and he was a little annoying, but I thought Adam Smasher was far more annoying. And he ended up being my least favorite character. And even by the end, I'd softened on him a little bit. But the kid I was fine with, and I kind of liked his little teaching Rock a catchphrase, and it was a little hokey and dumb. Like I said, it was like Terminator 2, but not quite as well. But again, with zero expectations, really just wanted 2 hours of entertainment. My biggest complaint was Adam Smasher, and that it did drag a little in the third act. The third act. Oh, and our villain at the end looked like a freaking PS2 bad guy.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I noticed, I was like, am I watching a movie from is this Scorpion King, from the Mummy Returns or whatever? My goodness. I agree with you that I think The Rock as Black Adam just wailing on these nameless thugs and showing off how badass he is. It's a little gratuitous, but it was so much fun in the gratuity. You mentioned the Justice Society. What did you think of the Justice Society? I loved Pierce Brosnan. I'm as a big 007 fan. GoldenEye came out the year I was born. How could I not love Pierce Brosnan? So yeah, it was great to see him as Dr. Fate. I think they were a little bit mixed though, but I want to hear your opinion on the Justice Society.
Same. So gotta say, like, one of the big challenges for me watching this movie was, how did I feel about the info dump? We had a big info dump on Kahndaq in the beginning, and then after a beat or two, we got the big info dump on the Justice Society. And I was waiting to see on that one, especially when you're introducing this many new characters. I really pay attention to how well you're doing it and how well you balance introducing it with showing me what I have to know going forward. And I thought they did really, really well. They gave us a little bit of Hawkman, they gave us a little bit of Fate, and then they slowly weaved in the other two a little later. And were very clear about who we needed to focus on. It was very much Justice Society was very much Hawkman and Dr. Fate plus a couple of friends. Pierce Brosnan, you can't complain about this man.
Can't go wrong.
Incredible actor. In the elder statesman role, he was a delight. I loved him. Aldous Hodge was the big surprise as Hawkman. Really enjoyed him. Brought a lot of weight. A little bit on the hokey side sometimes, with the so determined to bring Rock to justice. But all right, someone's got to be that guy. I get it. But did a good job balancing, showing him to be powerful while still, not letting Black Adam take a D or take an L.
Yeah.
So that was good. And Cyclone did well. And Adam Smasher, I warmed up to him a little bit towards the end, but he was a little too goofy and incompetent, which did raise one of my big immersion breaks in the movie, which was, if you're going to stop this guy who is so powerful and practically unstoppable, why are you bringing two first-timers?
Great
That
point.
is not first mission stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That was the thing, and I guess you take the team you have, not the team you want. But I really felt like you could have. Surely there was someone else to call in, not these two brand newbies.
I did like the back and forth between what's his name? Adam Smasher. That's the one.
Yeah.
Adam Smasher, who looks just like Deadpool with a different color costume, which is a
Oh
little
yeah,
annoying.
totally.
It's
Yeah.
a little annoying, but I did like the back and forth between him and Hawkman, and he's like, "You and me later," and that kept
Yeah.
coming back. That was fun. And I gotta say, all the comedy it may not have worked for me, but in the theater that I was at 10:45 in the morning on a Saturday, there was a delightful old couple next to me. They were just laughing their asses off. They had such a good time with the comedy in this movie.
I did too. It was dopey. Most of the jokes were a little silly, a little cheeky, but honestly, I was fine with it because again, I just was not. I wasn't going in there needing gravitas. I wasn't going in there needing this to be any kind of big thing. When I go see Black Panther this week, I'm going to have expectations. I'm going to have
Right.
opinions for everything that happens. But this, I was very much just like, all right, fine, take me on a ride, and they did. So I caught myself. We had a very empty theater. There was maybe only like 6 or 8 of us in the entire theater, and I was laughing at most of the jokes, but I was like the only one. So I was having that
Yeah.
moment where I was like, well, maybe this isn't that funny, but I don't give a fuck. I was having
That's
fun.
funny. Yeah, but like with going off of Black Panther, though, that movie knows what it's supposed to be. It knows that it's a very serious movie dealing with very serious stuff. And for the MCU, I loved that it felt so restrained. And this movie doesn't really, I feel like, know what it's trying to be, in the tone. It kind of jumps, because then it leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, is the whole theme of imperialism in Black Panther's, or sorry, Black Adam's, excuse me, Black Adam's home country, going back centuries. It's constantly being occupied. I felt like the film wants to go there, but just can't go there. It like, I feel like maybe even in an early draft of the script, like the people occupying the country were like another country or something. But instead, they kind of, I feel like they cop out by being like, oh, it's a gang. They have a gang problem. And I'm like, oh, you want to talk about imperialism so bad, but you just won't go there. So just starting off this topic, what did you think of how it handled that theme?
Yeah, the whole intergang thing. And intergang is a real group in DC Comics. So I saw that they were trying to do some organic world building there using stuff that comic fans might recognize.
Mm.
But again, yeah, like this was clearly an invading country. This was clearly an act of aggression from an outside nation that was repainted to be this kind of non like a group without a home, so
Yeah.
that they could kind of have these talks about security versus freedom. There was a couple of lines that were straight jabs at MAGA GOPers, as far as I'm concerned, on the nature of freedom versus security, but all under the veil of these people fighting against intergang. And yeah, it was, they took more jabs than I expected, which I thought was kind of cool, especially for a movie that is largely being marketed at communities of color, which, unfortunately probably feel that oppressive imperialist boot quite a bit more than someone like me. It was nice to see. I always appreciate a little bit of a rallying cry in a movie. But yeah, it was a little muddled because of the kind of ambiguity of the enemy.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't as clear as it could have been, but I hope that folks picked up on the subtext, because it was there. It was just a little dull.
Yeah, and luckily they have a much better movie that does similar themes in much better ways in Wakanda Forever. But this movie also, I mean, they're just talking about the Justice Society too. They're painted also in the same sense as like, oh, well, they're not native to this country. They're foreign invaders, kind of. But at the same time, the kid worships superheroes, and then they still save the day, kind of at the end. And that's not really, that part of it isn't really resolved, at least not in a satisfactory way to me. So I just felt like it was the film again. It's just like, we're saying things, and I'm like, yeah, you're trying, and props for trying, but just very muddled.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I didn't even catch the bit about the kid. I noticed his obsession with superheroes, but it didn't occur to me the dichotomy of that versus the imperialist nature of these outside protectors. And that's a really great point, because it does. There is the point where one of I believe it's the mother, maybe, she says to him, to the Justice Society, where were you? You guys
Right.
don't come here and save us. He is our savior, and um, it really it kind of reinforced one of the biggest pitfalls of these shared superhero universes is there's always that question of, if Gore the God Butcher is so damn hard, why isn't the Hulk helping Thor fight him? Like
Right.
it's where are the other heroes? And the Justice Society, especially for a group who we'd never heard of before, they're not mentioned in Justice League, they're not mentioned in BVS.
Yeah.
So it's to come out of nowhere and be like, so they've been around long enough that Dr. Fate has gotten old. They've been around long enough that Hawkman is now in charge. They've been around long enough that Mom is like, where the hell have you been? We've never seen them before. So it's another. DC is unfortunately in the position where they're trying to make that Marvel money, but they don't have 14 years to wait.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do this right, you need 14 years of buildup. You got to start with one movie with a weird Sam Jackson cameo at the end. And if you're not willing to go that long game, you're going to have moments like this. And unfortunately, to have the issues with the shared universe aspect of it, like the WTF is the Justice Society, on top of the fact that this is not the Winter Soldier. This is not a detailed, intricate movie where everything ties together,
Right.
So we're lucky it was as good as it was.
Last thing I have is some spoilers. I liked the Black Adam twist of him being the dad at the end. The only thing bad about this is the CGI on Dwayne Johnson looked ridiculous. Yeah.
All the CGI was a little off-putting. It pretty much most of the CGI in this movie was She-Hulk walking through the office. If you've watched She-Hulk, I was not bothered by the CGI in She-Hulk, except whenever she walked through the office, and you could just tell it was like a card. It was like Roger Rabbit. It was a cartoon
Yeah.
with people, and that's how the villain felt. That's how the Rock in the old the scenes way back when felt. It just felt like it was like PS3 graphics or something. It wasn't quite polished enough. It reminds me of the third act of the first Black Panther with the war rhinos or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a little shoddy there. And I guess the reason is because some of that CGI team was already working on Endgame, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't know what big production DC's got their CGI team working on, but I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. No, that's a great point too. Yeah, and Marvel has problems, which I like to go into oftentimes. Watch my Multiverse of Madness review, but like they have kind of earned some of the problems because they have such a big operation going on. It's like DC, like they can't, or Warner Brothers rather, they don't even have enough money to release more than 2 movies in the second half of 2022. So it's like they're just it's not like, oh, there's some great thing around the corner so we could suffer through this. So that's unfortunate. But I wish James Gunn the best. I wish Peter Safran the best. I really hope that they make something great in the future and bring Zack Snyder back.
Yeah. I got to tell you, as much as the cohesion isn't there at DC, I have really enjoyed some of their high points. The James Gunn connected stuff, by far, the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, no notes from me. And although I'm not as much of a Zack Snyder fan as you are, greatly enjoyed his cut of Justice League far more than Whedon's. And I guess I got to go check out that ultimate cut of BVS, huh? Because I actually haven't seen that yet.
Let's talk about that cameo, though. Let's wrap it up with that cameo, the Superman cameo at the end. I think we need to talk. Henry Cavill's back. That's pretty cool. I am excited about what the future holds. So what did you think of that scene, and where do you see DC going under this new leadership?
Yeah, at this point, I'm ready for whatever they have in store, and the last few entries and the last few announcements have all been stuff that has been either positive or has me hopeful. The James Gunn stuff, like I said, I have really enjoyed. I've just been a big fan of his work for a while now. And, again, Black Adam walked out of it pleased. So as far as I'm concerned, this wasn't like a big win. I don't know that we need to be dancing in the streets, but I'm on board for what's next. And if they find a path forward on a sequel for that, I'm on board. And Henry Cavill has been one who has been, for a guy who has not gotten to do as much screen time as some of the big names over on the Marvel side of the coin, he has had such passion. he has had such a good energy about his role in DC, his stewardship of the Superman character, and just his respect for the fandom that I wasn't the biggest fan of Man of Steel. I am so happy he's getting a sequel. And I will 100% go watch it again just to make sure I'm caught up on the plot points and the beats. And like I said, I want to check out BBS Ultimate Edition. And just, I mean, I don't know that I need to forgive DC for its sins, but I'm ready for what's next. And for, you know, for folks making movies, hopefully that's what they need to hear, is that you've got one guy who's ready to see what you're ready to put out.
I think that's a win. I think that's a win. So I think both of us can say safely that you don't need to rush out to see Black Adam. But if you are on HBO Max one day, flipping through the titles, seeing what you should watch, maybe you should check it out. It might be worth killing 2 hours with. Again, like you said, too long. But, you know, could have been a 90-minute film. But you should watch it on streaming maybe.
If you like superhero movies, this should scratch that itch.
Awesome. Hilton Price, thank you so much for joining the show. You want to remind us where people can find your podcasts, and hope to have you on again soon.
Well, all of our podcasts are on the website olaministries.com, but you can also find it by searching on your favorite podcast apps, including Spotify or Stitcher. Just search Opinions Like A-Holes. That's A-Holes, not Assholes. And if you want to learn about The Office and our love for it, check out the People Persons Paper podcast. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Hilton. And finally, thank you, Kevin Conroy. Now, originally this week, I was going to do a monologue about DC versus Marvel, the state of the two studios and how they'll compete against each other at the box office going forward. But that can wait. This is more important. Kevin unfortunately passed away after a short battle with cancer Thursday, but what's more important is that he lived a prolific life that touched millions of people. I turned 27 this week, and while there's been 6 different live-action Batman throughout my life, a constant has been Kevin Conroy as his voice. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is cool, but in many ways the blueprint was the DC animated universe. Batman, the animated series, Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, all tied together in continuity with Conroy's Batman at the center. Outside my own family, I don't think a single person has devoted more hours to keeping me entertained as a child than Conroy did. He could have stopped there, but he didn't. After the DCAU ended, he revolutionized the Batman mythos again when he returned to the role in the Batman Arkham games. To this day, Arkham City may be one of the best Batman stories ever told. Now, obviously, I didn't know Kevin personally, but I did have the opportunity to meet him once at a Comic-Con here in Tulsa. I'll admit I asked the lame question. I asked, "What's your favorite Batman project?" And he responded all of them, because I'm sure he would. They probably all meant something very important to him. But the interesting answer came when my dad asked him, "What was the hardest project you work on?" He responded, "Arkham Knight." He said that voicing a video game was a lot harder than voicing an animated movie, because with a video game you have to, voice every single outcome that's possible instead of just the one. It only hit me later on that Arkham Knight was the 3rd Arkham game, meaning he knew exactly how hard this was going to be, but he kept coming back to do it anyways, because that's the kind of guy Kevin Conroy was. He knew how much this character means to the fans, and he carried that torch with pride. I could go on about the many ways that Kevin Conroy was one of a kind, but I want to end this the way I started, by saying thank you. Thank you from the little boy that watched Batman Beyond Saturday mornings. Thank you from the teenager that played Batman Arkham Asylum after school. And thank you from the young man who was over the moon at the prospect of getting to meet his hero. I wouldn't change it for the world. Okay, that's our show. I'd like to send a special thank you to Jenna Lazenby and Hilton Price for joining me this week. There will be no Film Fan Club shows for the rest of the year, guys, but we are working on part 2 of the video essay, Why I Hate My Favorite Franchise, A Star Wars Story, so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. I've been Sam Carrico. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.